us in the MTN Premier League. Logongi Young Buffaloes winner over the past weekend. Shayona Denver Sundowns. We have Royal Leopards coming back into winning ways, and Baba Islanders keep winning. The beat in Singizini Kaya Konade and that's in Tlangano and Manzinondras after 3 games winning. Finally, Seabeds Yabashaya. Seabeds Yona on the other hand, first win at 2023. Hello, my name is Patizwe Msivi. I'll be your host for Libhola Eswatini for the next hour. Sihleli nawe sikhulumisana sibonje ukuthi kuhambe kanjani khona imidlalo nethu yebhola la even sibuke nje yonke imidlalo ledlalile. Siyathi ukuthi because of rain kunema games la ngakakhona ukuthi achubeka over the weekend ma games ikakhulu bekadlala lenda sikubonjeni njengaloko sathi ukuthi ngilapho letulu li affecteke khona bantu labanenge. Kepha ke idlalile imidlalo khona kaManzini yadlala imidlalo khona endase enhlangano lapho letulu libonakala ngathi libe ngcono khona. But on Thursday imbabona salo siyadlala lapha Prince of Wales khona la embabane Prince of Wales lapho khona beyiseva the last game after ibenia 2 fans games lang 2 ukuthi kube bede ema fans seyicathile the next home game but awudlala seka khona ema fans and they actually won against yona iMonene Pirates emidlalweni lobodlala khona Thursday and of course over the weekend ezingishito nje ukuthi imidlalo beyidlala khona lapha emavuso Royal Leopard khona lekushaya yona iManzini ishaya yona i7 Dreams ngamagoli lasihlanu kulinye yabuya iYoung Buffaloes yashaya iDenver ngamagoli amabili. It was a beautiful weekend, more especially if you are a football fan. Stakujengisa lawo magoli, stakujengisa lawo ma-highlights alayo imidlalo yonke imidlalo lengikhuluma ngayo ledlalile and dawati ukuthi ema-games la Thabangulu Kellis bekumele idlalo neGreen Mamba who were local leaders before this match week abakakhona ikudlala bona Madlenya thamba ukuthi iviki inkemba lephasi iMadlenya started very well for a team lebuya first division nayo ayikadlali but they still safe bona abakhuluma ngabo relegation battle. They don't talk about anything. It was a beautiful game emavuso. Yes, the surface well safarishile kancane because of the wet surfaces of the wet ground, but it will recover and it was a day lebengasho ukuthi libelihle kakhulu. Even so the surface injena nje asikabone ama injuries because we know makudlala lina litulu ke kunama injuries, but I won't do that much talking talking about what happened. I have people for that, but before we get to loyo muntu ofuna ukusikhulumela lo matiko njengalinda masadlamini namhla kangiqali naye njalo kusotela ukuthi ngiyengibe naye Toti. I have the legendary words fail me trying to say who I'm with in the studio. I'll just let the camera do the talking. He'll do the introduction and all that, but it's one man I respect as a person, I respect as a professional. He has done so much for African football. He has done so much for South African football. He has won everything you can win as a journalist in South Africa. And I saw somewhere good see he used to be a goal scorer of North. He used to score goals at his time before deciding to take the pen and paper before I have Mokoena Thomas Kwenaite. Welcome to the show. I'm actually honored to have you in the studio right now.
Thank you, Patizwe. I'm really honored and it's a pleasure to be with you in the studio.
People, I know most of them Aswati, they are familiar with your work. They are familiar with your game. They're familiar with everything you've done for football. You host a show, Soccer Africa. We know you very well. We've seen you on our local grounds. But we see you now on TV. People most of them will not know that you started as a journalist writing stories, not just for TV, but writing. But before that, you used to score goals. You used to captain. What's the newspaper you were captaining?
Yeah, I used to. You know, I played for Pretoria All Stars. It was an amateur team at Trechville, Sosville, where I grew up.
Okay.
And during those days, it used to be the senior team, and then we were in the Super League. Then we were in D division, C division, B division, and A division. Tina Besugu D.
Oh, okay.
And I was one of those players who never got to play because I wasn't good enough.
Okay.
You know, and I would only play during the end of the month. Amachita by a spanner, and they would get paid. So they would be babalast, they were shy, and then they wouldn't report for matches,
game,
for the games, and then so that was the only time some of us
Thomas
about it. So that was the only time.
So Thomas, when you played for the newspaper, where you were the captain and you won the top goal scorer, because you had some legs.
It was. Yeah, that's true. When I joined the Star newspaper, you know, the Star newspaper falls under, it used to be the Argus group. Kwanamanje, it is the independent newspapers.
Okay.
But then the Argus group had the Star, the Saturday Star, the Sunday Star, the Sowetan, the Pretoria News, the Diamond Field Advertiser, they had the Cape Times, they had the Natal newspapers, Daily News, and they had about 12 titles within one group. So there used to be an annual tournament that would go on for about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I would like top scored almost every year. I remember we beat the Sowetan newspaper 10-1, and I scored 5 goals in that game. And I scored the 6th goal, and then, you know, my boot went off, and then it followed the ball right into the net for the 11th goal.
Oh.
And the Sowetan team protested. They stopped the game, and they said their goalkeeper was disrupted by a dangerous missile. So the game was stopped, and we said, okay, we take back the goal. It remains 10-0. Still, they refused to go on, and then so the game was abandoned.
But Thomas, let's just take it back a bit. How did you fall in love with journalism?
I became a journalist by mistake. You know, I tell my kids that I used to be a shelf packer at a supermarket in Pretoria, but I loved reading, reading and writing. My brother used to work at a bookstore in Pretoria, and would bring me books about Louis L'Amour, James Hadley Chase, Irving Wallace, African Writers Series, Abo Chinua Achebe, and all of them. And I would like read some more. But at the same time, I was working full-time as a shelf packer. So during the day,
you read.
Yeah, I would read because the deliveries were not there, and I was helping like I doubled up as a shelf packer as well as the clerk, the order clerk. So when there are no deliveries, I had enough time to read. Now, it so happened that my grade 10 English school teacher resigned from teaching, and the city council of Atteridgeville appointed him as an editor of a knock and drop monthly newspaper that circulated around Pretoria. So he came to me and said, I'd like you to contribute articles. I said, why me? You know, I'm not trained as a journalist. He said, no, I used to love your essays. I was very angry because he used to be critical of my essays and all that. And like, I would forget a comma and would penalize me so many marks and all that.
So he didn't understand when he said he loved your essays.
Exactly, when he said you used to be very good with your essays and letters, you know. So I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, no, write me stories, anything of interest around our community. So that's how I started. And eventually, he posted me to run the sports section because he had no idea. He never played sport whatsoever. So I would do boxing, I would do athletics, football, rugby, basketball. Athletics, basketball, and all that. So it got to a stage where I think after a year or so, he said he recommended me to the Pretoria News, which was a commercial newspaper, a big commercial paper. And the sport editor then said, I can see by looking at him that this Shangan boy will not make it. And then so I was rejected.
Is it?
But I didn't care. I mean, I had a full-time job. I loved writing, and I was writing for a newspaper that was publishing my stories, even though it was not sold. It was just distributed free of charge. So it so happened that 4 weeks after I was rejected by the Pretoria News, the chief bureau of the Pretoria Rand Daily Mail, chief bureau in Pretoria, he called our offices at the supermarket where I was working. He asked for me, and I answered the call. He said, do you know who's calling? I said, no. He said, it's John Mojapelo. I was shivering. I mean, John was a big journalist in those days. And the long and short of it is that he invited me to the Rand Daily Mail offices, interviewed me, and then I had a job.
Just like that.
Just like that. And I was like earning 380 rands a month at the supermarket where I was working. And then I freelanced for the Rand Daily Mail for 4 weeks. At the end of that 4 weeks, I was paid 1,600 rands, and I resigned immediately.
and decided to continue with.
I said, no, this is
serious.
Paying better.
This is serious.
This is serious stuff.
And from there, you never went back.
From there, unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, they took me to Wits University to do an advanced course in journalism.
Okay.
At the end of that course, I was employed full-time by the Rand Daily Mail. 6 months down the line, the Daily Mail closed down.
Oh.
And I was jobless for 17 months. I went back to the supermarket, begging for my job back. And they said, Mr. Journalist.
We can't touch you now.
No.
And then you went to sports full-time and you made a name for yourself. You started a TV show. We saw you even coming to Eswatini to cover football.
Yeah.
We get your background story, but now we've got interest because you cover African football. So we want to compete in Africa. We are among African countries. Since you started covering Eswatini football, when did you start?
I think it was around 2001 or maybe 2000 or 1999, somewhere there. I remember there was a Castle
Premier Cup or something
Castle like Premier Cup around there. It was a cup final and I came to watch. But no, before then, I think the national team was playing against Ghana.
Okay.
And I came to watch the game, and I think the national team got a terrible beating after that. But then I think it was much earlier than that, because Mark Gleason, who is a colleague, said to me, TK, South Africa might be isolated from international football, but very soon we will be back among international football playing nations. So you got to start, having a look at how African football is played like. So I would come to Mbabane, watch the national team, travel to Lesotho, travel to Botswana, and check out how international football was played. So that's how I got to get the interest about African football. Yes.
Yeah, and we saw your huge involvement in African football, more especially now in the time where Baba Swallows was competing in Africa and actually challenging the big guns of Africa. Looking at that time, what did you make of Eswatini football at that time when you started doing the show, the Swallows TV show? You were much invested in Eswatini football. Not alone, I understand you were in other countries, but we saw more of you at that time.
I think what I picked up during those days, my view of that period was that you had a golden generation of players, and you were fortunate to have a national coach like Umadze. Madze somehow seemed to get the best out of the players at that time. And I remember Eswatini needed a point to qualify for the AFCON. And that point was when they dropped 2 points against Zimbabwe here at Somhlolo. Had they won that game, just that one game, they would have qualified for the AFCON. I mean, I remember that squad. If my memory serves me well, there was Tony Tabetse, there was Mandla Palmer, there was Felix Badenhorst, there was Tony Tabetse.
He scored the goal.
Yes,
Felix,
there was.
I think
you had Unkomishi. You had a golden generation of players. Abo D4D.
Jabulu,
Abo Pupu.
I like how you remember all these players. I'm just letting you go. Like
I'm very passionate about football. So yeah, you honestly had a very golden generation that you produced at that time. And Madze also seemed to have an understanding with those players, and he seemed to get the best out of them. I remember watching a World Cup qualifier against Nigeria. How Swaziland at that time failed to beat Nigeria.
Because we played a draw.
It was a 0-0 draw here.
And they had the likes of Obi Mikel coming in here, and they couldn't do nothing.
Yes, absolutely. And Nigeria managed to score a 2-1, a very narrow 2-1, and I believe Palmer was out injured, out of the field when Nigeria scored the winning goal. So that to me convinced me that Eswatini football has come of age. But like most African countries, I think our people took their eyes off the ball. I don't know how, but whatever structures they had in place at that time, they were working. But I don't know what the country seems to have regressed since then.
A lot. Now, you're talking of that squad, the national team. At the back of that squad, there was Mbabane Swallows, who was doing well at that time in Africa. Probably wouldn't you say their performance reflected back to the national team?
It did, because like in many countries, you will have one or two teams doing very well, I would say, on the continent. And players from that particular team would form the core of the national team, you know. And at that time, Mbabane Swallows, I remember they beat Platinum Stars 4-2 with Skali scoring all the 4 goals. They went to Rustenburg, they drew 2-2. And they went to Congo, they scored, and the referees mysteriously disallowed the goal, you know. And fortunately, I was there with my cameraman. We recorded the match, and we played it on Soccer Africa, and everybody was shocked at how Mbabane Swallows were robbed. But yeah, as I say, that generation I don't know if people were aware that the late Gameze also used to help physically train the players.
Yeah, they are well aware,
Yes, when we were in Congo, we watched him, you know, doing the physical stuff, training the boys. At Gogi Kindinje and all that. Just like them, just like the players and all that. And I think Mbabane Swallows at that time was one of the fittest teams in the country.
It was.
Because in one season, they actually won all 5 titles.
Yeah, and I think 2 seasons, they went undefeated without losing any game. But now, we're talking about Eswatini football. You travel to countries. There are countries like Madagascar, who's doing very well now. They're in the SADC region. There are countries like Zambia who've done well in the past in terms of in African football. What did you say you picked? What could you say you picked from those countries that they are doing right? That maybe probably from the experience that you've witnessed in Eswatini, we can pick from them and say that if we do this and that, probably we can take shape and go forward.
I think Madagascar invested a lot in youth development.
Okay.
They actually established an academy, a youth academy, where they employed Jean-Marc, I just forget his surname, the guy who started the ASEC Mimosa Academy.
Okay.
When they couldn't continue working with him in Ivory Coast, the Madagascans employed him. He started a similar academy in Madagascar. And he started recruiting boys from under 10. And he started working with those boys. He had talent scouts in different regions of the country. If a boy was talented, he'll be recommended. And he would run the rule over him. If he impresses him, then he'll enroll him into the academy. Those boys grew up together. They formed the under 17 of Madagascar, under 20 of Madagascar. Right now, most of them play in the senior national team, and we saw them playing in the Chan tournament as well. So Madagascar is reaping the rewards of investing in youth development. And I think if all of us, even in South Africa, if we can seriously stop paying lip service to development and practically get involved in development, we can get far.
Yeah.
We could really, but I think what I could say is that we need to stop brandishing the word development and actually get involved in development. And our coaches as well, former players, legends that I can mention their names, they need to stop this attitude of entitlement. Like, if I played for the national team or I played professionally, the Football Federation has to employ me.
They owe me.
Or they owe me that thing. They have to employ me. No, get your hands dirty. Go and work and
development.
Start at the bottom. You know, start at the bottom, develop those youngsters, and also empower yourself, like Pitso Musimane has done. Don't wait for the Football Federation to say, hey, there's a course, a coaching course. Or go and attend these courses and empower yourself, improve your knowledge of the game, and then impart it to the youngsters.
Mr. Thomas, I know there's a lot to talk about with you. I mean, I'll run the whole hour, but the producer will kill me. What you're doing now, I mean, I know you all over Africa. You're doing the work everywhere in Africa. If I go to Zambia, they'll know about Thomas. If I go to Rwanda, if I go to Malawi, they'll know about Thomas.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I'm positive.
I'm joking, yeah.
What you doing for football currently, more especially for Eswatini football as well, because I know you are in and out of the country.
Yeah, beside my involvement with Soccer Africa, we as Media Mora, we produce a show called Eswatini Premier League Show. That basically showcases the country's football and looks at the business of football in the country. It also looks at tourism of the country, and we combine all these elements and put the show together, the Eswatini football show. That's basically what we are doing.
For the other countries, I know there are other countries who have done the same thing. Did it work well for them, saying, there is hope for Eswatini as well?
No, it did. If you I don't know if you remember, we used to actually do a TP Mazembe show.
Sure, okay.
Yes. Yeah. We did that for almost 3 years. We did that, and then the president of TP Mazembe, Moise Katumbi, actually ended up challenging for the state presidency of the country. That's how well known he had become.
Okay.
And yeah, I think we did well in that regard. We also produced a couple of documentaries in Zambia. One documentary actually was called The Rise of the Phoenix. It detailed how the Zambian national team was involved in that air disaster that decimated the whole national team. Yeah. And then how they started rebuilding, reconstructed a new team, and a decade later they won the AFCON in 2012. So yeah, and then we have another project that we are doing in Uganda, another one in Zimbabwe, and as well as in Ethiopia. There are different projects that we are doing, almost similar to what we are doing in Swaziland. But more than that, I think I've been involved in the media for 43 years now. And I feel that my time has come for me to drop the mic, drop the pen, and fade out of the spotlight. But there are a lot of youngsters out there who I would love to impart my knowledge to them. Teach them everything that I've gained over the 40 odd years that I've been involved in the media. What to do, what not to do, what worked for me and what didn't work for me, and all that. I would love to impart my knowledge to would-be youngsters that are interested in becoming journalists.
That's very interesting, because it was about to be my question. If you are sitting here, you're sitting at home, you want to be the next Thomas Konaite, you want to even go further than him, what do I do? In just short 30 seconds.
Patiswa, I think, first of all, pay attention to detail. And also, I see today's journalists, we have this, what do you call, the digital
oh yes, the social media
space and all that. You hear a story on social media, and then to you it is gospel. You take that story, you print it. That's dangerous. I was taught that there are two sides of a story. Get both sides.
Okay.
And that is why in the 40 years that I've been a journalist, I've never been asked to apologize, simply because I always got two sides. And also, be interested, be inquisitive, read as much as you can, have background knowledge, and then I'm sure you can actually become better than I have ever achieved.
Last one. I know you said if you want to go back to that golden generation, or if you want to produce, development is key. You have to go to development. But besides development, because I know there's whole aspects of the sports, including your administration and all that.
Yeah.
Where are we losing it now? Where and what can we do as a country to say, now, man, we want to go back and compete? Now we can't even compete for COSAFA. But what can we do?
I think it's not only a problem of Eswatini. It's an African problem. That you find sometimes the administrators drop the ball, and sometimes it's an issue of, if as a federation you say to your players, come into camp, then we are playing a match, and then these will be your bonuses, even if it's 500 emalangeni, you tell them that every day you will get 500 emalangeni as your daily allowance. And for playing the game, you will get 2,000 emalangeni. Fulfill that promise. Because some of the players depend on that money,
yeah,
you know, for the upkeep of their own families. So when you break those promises, it affects the players and they will not give you the 100% that you expect from them. When you have coaches, you have a contract with the coach. Fulfill that contract.
Honor that contract. Yeah.
Honor that contract. And so I think the onus lies on our administrators. If they can just jack up the act a little bit, then I'm sure we can get up somewhere as a continent.
Last one. I will not want you to go any further with this one, Mr. Thomas. You've been coming, since the season started, you've been coming in and watching the league continues. Any player that has impressed you?
Quite a couple. I think Nsingizini's goalkeeper is Sibusiso
Dlamini.
Dlamini.
Yeah.
For me, he has impressed me quite a lot. And there's this boy from Lesotho,
Bareng, the one who plays for Highlanders. Bareng.
Absolutely. Yeah. Him as well. He's been... And of course, Felix Badenholz. And I'll keep on saying Pupu is still going on. So is Njabulo. And Jabulo, yes, D4D, and Scully remains.
There is your goalkeeper.
There's my man. I mean, this guy, he still looks very young to me. But I think if the authorities, his coaches, the national coach, if they can invest in this boy, pay attention to him, teach him everything that he needs to know, this boy has the ability to go very far in the game.
Thank you so much, Mr. Koneta. You'll be happy to know that Sposiso is part of the national team that has been called up as of today.
You're kidding me?
He was called in.
He deserves it.
It is. I'm sure the coaches are watching and saying we made the right call.
I'm sure they must be. I'm quite impressed. And congratulations to the boy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. Thank you so much for coming in, honoring us. I know it's late and you'll have to travel tomorrow and all that. All the job you've been doing, running up and down the country, trying to get the show off the ground. Now we're going for episode...
We're going for episode 5.
Episode 5 now, so it's very busy. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an honor even for me interviewing the great Thomas Gonaite. But we're going to continue with the show now, where we're going to go into the highlights. I'm sure I saw him in the stadium, so he knows what he's talking about. When he mentioned those players, it's players he watches. So it's not just players that I say, hey, there's someone like this, there's someone like this. No, he watched those players himself. There he is. I think that was my. He's with Julian, always with Julian.
Yeah, Julian Dube is my partner and colleague.
Yeah, they are around. They go to the games, so I'm sure you've seen them moving around the stadium, capturing those moments and all that. But we're going to continue with the show, where we're going to welcome Master after the break, and we're going to analyze and talk about the highlights, what happened, what could have happened, what should have happened, what didn't happen, that was supposed to happen. After the break, continue with Linda Master Dlamini.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, to feel the rush of life overwhelm you, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. You ask, and we give you the royal experience. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. There are but a few places on earth so special, so unique, and so spectacular, where it becomes the rite of passage for the ambitious travelers, the courageous souls, to all have the one and only royal experience. That day when you look deep into your heart and leap into an ancient world so very different from your own, where magic, beauty, and love are shared forever, then you will have a royal There's just one place on earth where the people make you feel a part of their kingdom, where you just might volunteer to awaken spirits, enrich minds, and work alongside communities to build, motivate, and inspire. This is truly the royal experience. When you dream of a different world, beyond the ordinary, beyond time, discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
The show goes on lapho khona sesitawungena kuyo ke imidlalo ukuthi kwentekeni kuyo impela somfo. Master, the game started. Oh, first, let me first welcome you on the show. You know, I just had Thomas, who has the similar energy with you, because once with you in the studio, the energy just skyrockets. So respect me, understand, and forgive me. Good see. Please welcome to the viewers at home.
Phathizo ngiyabonga ukungibukela hlelo lakho ngitithola ukukhuluma vusele wena eMaloyal viewers. I think nami Phathizo kube bekuyangami bengidawuhlala awalonke ngale behind the scenes ngilalele Thomas, because he's a legend. We learn from the best. You traveled continent yase Africa. Nawubuta ema sources ase Eritrea utakunika Thomas. Nawubuta ema sources ase Sudan utakunika. Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia konke. So ngicabanga si le timvo lesifundzako kancane kancane kuyo.
The sad part is we didn't even get to the best part of it all. I've talked to him. The stories he had, you can have like the whole day, like just listening to his stories. Asikhulume master. Saqala amagame
Test day, yes.
Lapho khona salo beyisave the last game. My fans lebeka bangomsini. Yadlala yawina. The whole weekend, I know kubek nema games la ngakaqhubeka, but for you, any impressive results lolubonile over the weekend?
Ngicabanga ukuthi rally party kushaya amagoli amaningi kakhulu iyona Young Buffaloes against the Denver Sundowns kunemavuso, but the one yeMbabane Swallows versus Monin Pirates ngicabanga ukuthi nayo on Thursday yadlala on Thursday Prince of Wales lapho khona iMbabane Swallows still beyidlala igame yesibili without ama fans. Igame lena without Felix yakhumbula ukuthi kule game wathola i-red card last week before kule game le, so i-top scorer yabo so ngicabanga ukuthi bebayiteke game lena against Monin Pirates lebe seyidlale 4 games in a row ingadliwa bekuyi Swallows under pressure because bebamisa Felix and Monin Pirates on the other side beyidlala ibhola lenhle, but nawubuka kule team lebeyikhona yayo iMbabane Swallows, Neliswa from Manzini Wanderers made his debut for iMbabane Swallows on the day, but Sandile, a player for big games, whenever is needed we deliver. He got the first goal yayo iMbabane Swallows header, and kule previous game before le game le wathola wakora against Tambuti nayo kwaba iheader. So ngicabanga ukuthi kancane kancane iform yakhe uya recover yena sayapika Sandile Hlashwako, a beautiful header kune post. Ngilokhu lokugcinga kuma strikers Phathizo the run ukuthi if ngiyamthanza Immobile wase Italy because he's a king when he post. Whenever ibhola ingena icross kune post utayihlangabeta ayiflike ingena.
Tiger playing his first game for Mbabane Swallows, and he goes on to score a goal like this.
I think Neliswa Tiger he forced his move kuya khona kuMbabane Swallows kube nema talks before le game le wagcina ayitholile iclearance from Manzini Wanderers to Mbabane Swallows and kule game lena playing in front of the president, the club president Mbabane Solos, Mr. Lukele. Ngicabanga ukuthi officials Mbabane Solos, even the administrators baphathi belicembu, they are happy with him because bamlwele naye Tiger ulwile kufika kuMbabane Solos. I like confidence yakhe. He's a national team player. Kuthatha shots la kanje outside the box as a midfielder, attacking midfielder. Ngicabanga ukuthi we need him akule form la kuyo for Mbabane Solos and for the national team.
Of course, game sayikhulumisana Thursday lapho khona sabuka in detail nyana sabuka ukuthi khamba kanjani. But the next game yadlala master list akhuluma nganyalo 7 Dreams versus yona Royal Leopards bedlala emavuso on Saturday. I know the surface was not friendly because of the rain, but it came one-sided.
One-sided game. Royal Leopards ifika kule game lena phathizwe ema results bekangayivumi neze nani kahle and bayodlala against 7 Dreams nayo 7 Dreams bekungayivumi 7 Dreams beyiluzile week before kuMazini Wanderers. So ngicabanga ukuthi both teams nawubuka le stadium emavuso on the day beline kakhulu phathizwe bekungadlaleki, so bekungadzingi i-team letawudlala that beautiful football lesenye isikhathi nangabe likanje linika kakhulu kulukhuni for a team ukuthi wendela uma passes, because now to wendela uma passes le bhola ngendeka ingafiki la idzinga kufika khona. But i-Royal Leopards inenhlanhla, they have players like Junior Makagula lo be consistent for the past 4 years for yona i-Royal Leopards got this goal, a beautiful goal. And ke phathizwe ngicabanga ukuthi even the week before sasho ukuthi yena Junior is Royal Leopards best player. Uyayenda le team for the past 2-3 seasons. Uyayenda le team iklik, uyayenda le team ikhona kudlala yazama i7 Dreams. Imagine if lela goal lela that attempt yangena, but hey, the chances bekatholakala both teams iwathola, but Mponyo Royal Leopards goalkeeper, I think an experienced goalkeeper has been with Royal Leopards since 2013, so 20 years aku Royal Leopards, and kwenda iblanda le kanje ngicabanga ukuthi yaphosa eCosta yona iRoyal Leopards, but waba nenhlanhla. Look at that. Lo munye ngablame ukuthi bekumanti, but the way ehanglishe ngayo ibhola, I think akusiyo indlela lafundise ngayo ngumphikeleli goalkeeper coach wayo iRoyal Leopards. For me, a contender goal of the season. He's a defender, and we are justify ukuthi bambiteleni ku national team. Former Vovovo defender, ngicabanga ukuthi kuthatha on ema players ayo i7 Dreams uyi defender kanje. Look at him, the confidence lanayo ukuthi angida eliminator 1 or 2 3 players. Hamur ngiyayifaka ngithi nangiyifaka ngiphinze ngene ku space. Look at him, uyongena ku space and the composure inside the box. I think this is a perfect goal Lelkorelena Masangana.
Quickly he goes on to assist
a defender scoring waphinzwa assister. My man of the match.
Yeah.
Kule game le. Man of the match. Kakhulu. I think, look at that. Uyayibuyisa ibhola, even though the defending yayo i7 Dreams ngicabanga ukuthi coach Botsotso, a legend Botsotso Khoza kudzinga ukuthi ayilungise kakhulu I defense yayo i7 Dreams.
See that boy who just made that pass, master. He's the product of Skaratindo Foundation.
Yes.
That you remember those tournaments some few years back?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago. Kwaba ne tournament Skaratindo Foundation.
Lungelo Smelane was chosen.
Lungelo Smelane tholakala ukuthi uyi best player wahamba we South Africa. He's been with Jomo Cosmos, Amatax, and then
he made his name in SuperSport.
Yeah, SuperSport. Uyabuya ke nyalo ubuya ku yona iRoyal Leopards, even though okulone utawujika abuyele khona ku SuperSport. But I think njengoba ngishilo ngasi I defending yayo i7 Dreams, because lama goal lawa Jerome Chalinchali ku center yayo I defense yayo i7 Dreams naye an experienced player, used to play for yona iRoyal Leopards, used to play for iDenver Sundowns. Ngicabanga ukuthi kumele ukuthi bayilungisa kakhulu yona idefense yayo i7 Dreams.
There is a lot to be fixed with i7 Dreams njengaloko ihlele kabi kunamba ngcina kulo position, but we're going to hear the comments from the coaches ukuthi ngabe yahamba kanjani imidlalo. While you still prepare for those interviews, we're going to continue with the next game master that played on the day. Lapho khona iyona Denver Sundowns. Yathola na itulu kanye nayo Young Buffaloes. Quite interesting game, master. Looking at Denver Sundowns scored first. They had better control of the game.
Phathizo nobuka iDenver Sundowns from the get go yayiditshelile ukuthi ifuna kuyikhama Young Buffaloes iyayithola igoli ekuqaleni wonke umuntu uthi ngenteka lana yona Young Buffaloes ibe nenkinga I think nayo Young Buffaloes yakhanzakala usabona ke Phathizwe goalkeeper wayo Young Buffaloes usabonakala lokho usakhula first season yakhe as a first choice goalkeeper awathatha over kunhlahla kwebo I think lena uyabona ukuthi no is still young usafunza and nayo ke le defense ngicabanga ukuthi uyayibona ngalendlela ebehliphe ngayo because bay attacker kule goal leli bay attacker Young Buffaloes yathi na attacker yasi ishare ama spaces lengemuva yasi capitalize ke yona iDenver Sundowns ngantsakala I think naye ngikubuka ukuthi goalkeeper sophumile because warasha goalkeeper kuphuma
no business coming out
kakhulu
because once you get out of the 18 master so eliminate use of hands
and kude nalota cover lengemuva so ngicabanga singile experience lengikhuluma ngayo leyo.
What do you make of this, master? Immediately after bascorishe a few minutes later they made these 3 changes which I think changed the game for Buffaloes.
Kakhulu I think coach Gcina Dlamini wayo Denver Sundowns wenda a panic change those 3 changes were unnecessary. There was no need to see afake 3 wema players at the same time. Ganzi Young Buffaloes on the other side nayo iyachubeke attack.
Ngikutana master kwanele lapha ubambe ibhola. Uyivimba ibhola like Suarez did some few years back. But iyakhona iBuffalo kuyicinzetela ingene. Uthi Rafaela no still a penalty. Right call or bekumele play advantage. Bese unika red card.
Yeah, advantage allow the goal ukuthi lingene then uyabuya ukhoshina umdlali penalty. But Saviola took it wascora lebese ukuthi 1-1 for Young Buffaloes. Nakabuya because you need ngihlale ngisho Phathizwe you need ama players la njengabo Saviola latawenda ukuthi if alitholela igoli ekuqala athi okay now we can win the game asiwatholela ama chances sichubeke sifake ibhola ekhathe boxini because sesibonile ukuthi bayawenda lama mistakes bayaphanika sesikorile igoli ekuqala then Saviola as always utamkhanza ekhathe boxini right on time top scorer le yala season lesikhuluma ngayo record top scorer Eswatini football with 26 goals record so ngicabanga ukuthi every time Young Buffaloes iyathi ukuthi if siwafaka lawo mabhola ekhase boxini then istalithola goal but the goalkeeper if you decide as a goalkeeper kuphuma uyozama kuphuncha ibhola like goalkeeper Denver Sundowns endile make sure ukuthi le bhola uyayikhanza uyayishanga sibhakela.
Of course, master, that was the calls the Sawubona ekhona on Saturday eMafusi. On Sunday we had to travel to Nhlangano, it's in down south. So we Nhlangano lapho khona bekunema game ngathi lamabili lamakhulu.
Yeah.
We had the Manzini derby. Yes, it was played in Nhlangano. Don't ask me why and how, but it was played in Nhlangano, the Manzini derby, Manzini Sipets. These 2 teams game master etagle game lena ana 2 wema results la now. La chamka lamabi na lelihle. Manzini Wanderers unbeaten in 3 games. Sipets, I guess, a winner in 2023. Potential big game because everyone is playing for something.
Phathizwe njoba usho ukuthi iManzini Wanderers nawubuka the series yalama games labese bawawinile including na iDerby nakhona against Mountain Pirates with those 3 games including 7 dreams le struggle shako but the confidence yalabadlali beManzini Wanderers kancane bese iboosteka and nawubuka even the key players Mlaba former Mbabana Highlanders player who used to be a midfielder at Mbabana Highlanders but now with Manzini Wanderers so dlala yona center back but ngale yona iManzini Sipets nawubuka ngicabanga yeah
the 2 men labagoqembi kwalomoya Sawa and Sposisi
Sawa former
Highlanders
players experience then you have Muzitsabetse always a threat kuma opponents the captain so ngicabanga ukuthi and njoba usho ukuthi Manzini Sipets 2023 bebangaze bayithola i-win. So this game kubo bekuyi-decide ukuthi i-league noma i-season yethu i-decide kanjani. Walithola Mfundo Zwane el-goal, but kule process ayohead al-goal waba ne-injury. A bad injury, I must say. Kule game lena nje wahamba waphuma kwayiswa esibhedlela. I must say ukuthi uphumile itolo yena Mfundo Zwane wamanzini siphethe, but uphumile nje wendiwe ma stitches and samelwe nema results ayo i-x-ray ukuthi ibenganani le damage lengekhasi, otherwise he's okay, ustitchiwe, uphumile esibhedlela. Good news. Good news, but this time around bekakhona ema paramedics, yes, stadium right on time.
So now you understand why but ngayicala game without them.
10 minutes into the game. This was 10 minutes into the game.
Imagine ukuthi takudlala
atawufika ngesikhathi ngicaba ukuthi dinvo lethu lekuthi kancane tiyalungiseka, but the game itself ngicaba ukuthi some of the players nawubuka le play Manzini Wanderers they tried ukuthi baphaselane. That's the philosophy yakhe yena coach Teresai Changari Pendule Mawelele, yes, the assistant coach, and Mlaba tried, because parties, you need experienced players ukuthi abone ukuthi I'm playing against a reinforced defense, so kumele ngiwathathe lawo mashot ami outside the box. They needed that Manzini Wanderers to try and break yona reinforced defense.
Master, if there is one thing biggest mistake longayenza uyiteam elodlala nesiphethe ukuthi uvumele isiphethe ukuthi score ecala.
This team can defend.
Yeah,
they can defend. Indlela isiphethe ledlala ngayo, it's once we score, look at the numbers badlali besiphethe, even though
babashayile lapha
bazama because if offside trap udzinga ukuthi in the show kuthi kude lo tamfaka i-opponent ekhathe boxini, but this chance iManzini Wanderers bekumele ukuthi i-capitalize kuyo kakhulu, and nalama cross ke bese bawazama bawafaka khona ekhathe boxini, but you know ukuthi iManzini Wanderers beginning of the season beyidlala ngaye Fabrice Mopina
khona
lawo ma chance lawo.
Mthokozisi lapha wajaka wendani khipha akasekho epalini sekude la tayithinta ngaka ibhola isathi nyawo.
If a serious Mthokozisi,
come on,
if a serious Mthokozisi angaba serious parties for isiphethe. Remember last season wathola over 10 goals for yona iManzini Siphethe, including naye Muzi. Mthokozisi ngicaba ukuthi one of the most talented players la khona ku local football, but udzinga nje ukuthi abe serious kancane, igame yakhe ayithathe serious.
Is 1-on-1 and it gets another chance.
I think bahlala naye phasi last season bamkhulumisa yena Mthokozisi bake bamzama nje bamtshela ukuthi athathe ibhola serious, but more than that parties, I think the coaching aspect iyadzingeka ngala kuMthokozisi afundzise ukuthi if so itholile that through pass uyagijima ufaceane na goalkeeper wena kanjani the decision. Ngicabanga ukuthi dzinga nje polish up kuye Mthokozisi, otherwise is one of my good players.
Good save from a free kick yakhe nasawa. Ngiba buhlungu na master when you say they should teach him basics at this age. I think it goes back to what Thomas said. Development, we're lacking in that aspect.
Not per se gumpolish, because lo munye umuntu uyayadzinga ukuthi ngihlale ngisho even at Premier League level the reputations now trainer a team iyakwenda ukuthi ugcine uthole the best out of yona team.
Comic stuff. Master Lana, I think the issue of paramedics. But better my paramedics good. What's the goalkeeper man? Angtendele lo 7.
Patis, I think as much as
look at this. Look.
as much as ema teams onke kumele ukuthi abe nabo qualified team doctors. They know how to deal with ima incident la kanje. But the paramedics nasabidwa ukuthi utando thatha umdlali. I think ngiko the goalkeeper weManzini Wonders lakhala ngakuthi kwecala sikhathi.
Yabo goalkeeper is calling for the stretch.
Siyahamba sikhathi.
Nangithi Dr. Wonders siphethe yabakhomba ukuthi nabaleli abahleli khona.
Exactly because thina sitelekto lapha lo mdlali then the paramedics atawuta ne stretcher afike amthathe amkhokha. So ngicabanga ukuthi kudinga ukuthi le tinvo leto but I understand ukuthi namuhla there are some reports ukuthi there is
an agreement in place.
Yeah, yes.
Let us
sort tonke le tinvo leto.
Yeah, because Master, one thing I was talking Tanda from
Young
Buffaloes and the national team as well. Ukona ku set up yakona as team doctor or assistant team doctor. He did say ukuthi lapha labamfu lelwati kumele libe kulabo team doctor.
Yes.
Laba beta nalo meshinje ukuthi
ngikuthwale. The paramedics parties bona beta sebatokhokha lo mdlali. Nakudzinga ukuthi amixo sibedlela basebenzise imoto bamixe sibedlela but the team doctors ngiwo labati ukuthi ema injuries ibhedi kanganani nangabe lo mdlali ofentile tonke letinvo leto udzinga ini ngaleso sikhathi leso.
Another game leyalandzela lapho Master njalo kusebhethi yagcina ngoba lo mdlali loyo ngeligolinye ecanseni. Then it was yona insingizini liyatholana nayo imbabane Highlanders khona lapha endasenhlangano where we saw players Master players like Borio coming into the team after a long time ukuthi basicale yes started against Green Mamba but didn't perform well. White Folly chance Bereng coming in wafika naye Master started got a chance. Talking of Enzo who's been getting the chances for imbabane Highlanders mabuka labadlali labaselectako labanye bebangadlala kangako Luvengo what is he bringing into the team as we look at the players?
I think Patizo nawubuka the starting 11 sayo imbabane Highlanders. I've been saying this. If they want to dominate Emma Premier League teams, play that diamond in the midfield. Kule game lena bekudlala Tom as a number 6, a holding midfielder. Then the two number 8, Logung Bereng na Rio on the day. Then Enzo adlala as a number 10. He played very well. So I think if Mbabane Highlanders can continue playing the ngaleyo ndlela leyo, I think for Nsingizini there is angathi ukuthi is it luck, is it confidence kulama players, because the last time Nsingizini won a Premier League game it was last year 2022 against Mbabane Solos. Since ahambile Siza Dlamini aye ku Mbabane Solos Nsingizini Hospitals ayadi iwin. So ngicabanga ukuthi coach Gerard Perry including na yonke i-technical bench yakhe nawo bonke abaphathi be-team it's either bahlala phansi bakhulumise abadlali because bese sekuya kuba nemthelela ukuthi i-team iyachubeka ingawini lathi ingqondweni abadlali. Remember even at first division first round bebalida badlala kahle kakhulu but second round bahamba about 7 games bangawin.
Yeah, Master, look at the players like Mancoba
Vilagati, former
Vovo
player, national first division top player wayo umnyaka wa 2019-2020. They have Ikrim.
Yeah, I'm looking at that Takana. He's from Zimbabwe and when I was doing the research, Master, I found out because Takane used to play for Zimbabwe national team.
Yeah, he played even in Turkey.
Yeah,
he played in Turkey. So we are understandably experienced labayiletsile kuye and uyabona ke Phathizwe some kukhona le tikhathi lotibona ukuthi is a national team player.
Yeah, the quality uyayibona.
Le quality uyayibona lapha kuye but udzinga ukuthi atfole badlali lata ukhona ukuthi adlale nabo ba understandani because i-team chemistry imcoka kakhulu.
That's his second game. So.
Yeah, ngushilo ke na ku Phathizwe about a few weeks ago ngathi they needed someone lo what league lo taw leader yon. This is a good chance.
So I think it's his first game now from Thabangulu Kellis.
Thabangulu Kellis. Good chance. I think Doc Peter, the defender, Peter, Mbabane Highlanders, I think that's a very good. Kule game lena Phathizwe, now buka the chances, maybe bekungakadzingi ukuthi igame iphele ngeligoli. At least 2 or 3 wema goal because this is a goal. Scully, if he was still playing for Mbabane Highlanders, this is a goal.
That's a goal.
Yeah,
but it was beautiful. The way that both teams came into play. Tactically, Master, I think both teams are bonagala ukuthi they are coached well. It was just Highlanders with this last goal deciding.
You sometimes need players latau banesbins. Look at Tony. Yes. Look at Tony Machacha. Usuka ngala ngentas udzinga 2 players lata kwenda that quick interpassing. Ngitsinga nje badlali phathizo labang 2 lengidase nangibaphasela ibhola bayifaka esikhaleni baphasela ibhola bayifaka esikhaleni so Tony uyayithrowa ibhola uyinika yena
literally started play
exactly uyayicala le throw in uyayifaka uyifakela Bereng uyayifaka Bereng I think na goalkeeper because he made a mistake engqondweni yakhe uthi because ufuna ukushaya nga left clear position leya maybe ayiletha ngala ngentasi because uthi lo mthetho nasongale ngenhla shaya ibhola ngala ngentasi I think naye wabulawa ukuthi afune ku Kramer naku lelo ngisho ufuna umuntu lata udlala naye ufaka ibhola ku Bereng uyayibuyisa and akachubeki nekuma uyayenda leyo run ekhathe boxing goalkeeper.
I think the technique applied was wrong but before we even get to the goalkeeper I'm looking at the numbers of defenders in Zindala Pekatse boxing. All of this, I think there were about 7.
I always say, if ungeta tinombolo ekatse boxing, but the players bangawati ema roles abo nema duties abo inside the box.
Look at this, look.
I always say Patizo, I hate zonal marking because these players now buka nje ukuthi bona bathi ngizonal markile mina. But ngizonal mark why ngabe seke kule zone yami sengizama kuvala lesikhala angagijima angayende le run ayithola ichance ekukora.
Master, we're running out of time. Highlanders, are they title contenders? Are they title contenders?
Yes.
Swallows?
Yes.
Green Mamba?
Yes. Buffaloes, yes.
One of them will win the league or?
Gulo 5 wala ma teams lawa. Isibalenga 4. Gulo 4 ma teams. One of them utaiwina i-league.
Ngwathi pray for ungafuna ngepelkam.
Green Mamba.
Green Mamba Master will win the league. He did say the last time Swallows will finish the season ingakase yakhala phasi kulomnye umnyaka kwendeka lokho so sekunako ukuthi ngimthembe ukuthi ayijalela mawubheja ungalilalela. Kepha ke sibonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho Master. Sitawubonga kakhulu nakuye Thomas Kunayite lo Slonphile wethu khona la I think into eksakade Eswatini TV sakhulumisana naye. Sibonga kuyo the whole sports crew elesendile make sure ukuthi siyahamba sithola this content elesibuya sikhulumise nawe la emakhaya. Chubeka mbukelo uhle uthotele izinto inhlelo sikulethela tona singumsakazo we Eswatini TV. My name is Patizo Msibi. Good night.